PBE for set 9 is finally here, and I can say after playtesting, I feel like this is going to be one of the best sets we've had, so I'm really excited to play it, and that's why I also wanted to share with you 11 comps that I think that you'll enjoy. They're also pretty good too as you start playing PBE. First one that I have to go over is one that I think a lot of players are going to love and are going to be excited to play because it is the classic Arcane Comp, where you take all the Arcane units, throw them on the board, and they're all pretty good together. You have Piltover and Zaun as well as the Gunner traits as your main active traits. There are a couple ways to play this. You can play Sister Reroll, which is carrying Jinx and putting the tank items on Vi, and then you get both of them to 3 stars. I saw this do very well during the playtest. However, if you have spats, you might want to look into going into Piltover 6 or Zaun 6. Piltover 3 gives you a T-Hex on your board that you can later sell for gold, or you can keep on your board, and it is a pretty strong unit. However, Piltover 6 gives you a T-Hex as well as extra loot after each round, and this is some good loot. It is your new type of like underground stuff, but it's after every single round you get a loot orb. So it's a lot of fun. I got that earlier, as you can see. And then Zaun is interesting because it gives you mods that you can put on your units. And then when you get 6 Zaun, they get this bonus, and it's extremely strong during the mid game, but it does fall off in the late game, so it is more of a top 3, top 4 comp, but it does transition very well into win out comp, and so you can see it fits Heimerdinger really well, and Heimerdinger is just one of the best late game units because of building up the turret, and just a level 2 Heimerdinger is insanely strong, so make sure to pick up that unit. The alternative way of playing it is also doing a Yasuo reroll as well with a Senna carry. So there are a lot of ways to play this comp. I felt like it was really strong in the mid game, but it kind of fell off in the late game. At some point, if you're playing Piltover 6 especially, you need to get out of it and go for a stronger 5 cost board, since this isn't a super high value board overall, but it's very good for top 4 and it's a lot of fun. The next comp is one of the strongest and most consistent comps that came out of PBE, Deadeye Freljord. It is Ashe, Lissandra, Sejuani, Aphelios, Urgot, Akshan, Sion, plus a strong frontliner. Aphelios 2 is your carry in most cases. You can also reroll for Akshan 3. And then you have the Deadeyes, which is the Ashe, Akshan, Aphelios, and Urgot. Urgot is a frontliner. He can also go in the second hex too, but know that he doesn't need to be in the back line is a big one. Sion is your main tank if you have him 2-starred, if not, then it is Sejuani. Also on Aphelios, I highly recommend that you have Guinsoo and Deathblade. It made a really big difference in his damage output. However, although Freljord is a really strong trait, there is another way to take advantage of it with higher quality units, and if you see in this video that I am losing to it, which is more of a value gunner Deadeye Freljord, just high value units. We have Cassante, Sejuani, Lissandra, Urgot, Sion, Ashe, Ryze, Senna, and Zeri. So Senna is your carry, so instead of having a 2-star 4 cost, you now have a 2-star 5 cost. And then you also get Ryze on your board, which is one of the strongest units in the game, especially depending on what region you're on. He's very strong. This just has more higher value units that you want to use while still getting that Freljord in there. And you can see that the traits line up pretty nicely. And in this, you have Sion as your tank, but if you don't have him 2-star, once again, Sejuani, or if you have 2-star Cassante as well. And then you can use Morello on Lissandra in here too if you don't have a Sunfire on your Sion, which is nice. I highly recommend this one because it is a little bit stronger than the previous board I showed you. It is more costly, but it's something that you can easily kind of pivot into afterwards. We've seen some boards that aren't very vertical, so I want to go ahead and go over some of those as well. Obviously, Challenger vertical is going to be a thing. No surprise there. You put the Challenger units. There are only 6 of them, so that is something you need to know, that 8 requires 2 spats. And in this case, you have a couple options how you play this. Kalista and Warwick reroll. Warwick is your tank, Kalista is your carry. It's important to note that even though she's a challenger like Kaisa, they're both AP carries. Do not put AD items on Kalista and Kaisa. They are AP carries and they love Rageblade, so make sure to get Rageblade on them as well. And then the other options that you can also do is the Yasuo 2 and the Kaisa 2. Yasuo is an AD unit, a fighter. He likes to have the Hodge and the Titans Resolve and the IE and all that good stuff. In potential spat holders, you can do Gwen. Gwen works with Kalista for the Shadow Isles. However, you are lacking a frontline in this comp, so getting Sion and Sejuani on there works quite well. In pretty much every comp, if you get Sion, Sejuani, or Cassante Shin as your frontline, you're in a pretty good spot. That's also an option in this comp. And if you ever get Ryzen, you pretty much get Ryzen too. And for the challengers personally, if you do have a spat, I recommend taking out Samira And the reason being is that you don't have as much frontline as you would like here, and your damage is plenty okay with all the challenger units that you have. So I think keeping the Irelia is the better option here. Challenger isn't the only vertical is good. In fact, arguably the best vertical is Demacia vertical, as you do get a lot of buffs to all of your units touching the elite unit, as well as radiant items for having 3 Demacian units out, which is incredibly strong, especially early game. Imagine getting a 2-star Poppy, and then she's getting a radiant Bramble Vest, a radiant Declaw. I mean, it's insane. It felt a little unfair at times. I'm interested to see if they keep it that way, because early game, getting a 2-star Poppy with a radiant item felt impossible for her to really be killed. You have a couple carry options in this comp. First off, while playing the test, Kayle 3 was insanely overtuned. I mean, Kayle 2 and Kayle 1 were insanely overtuned. So if that is left that way, Kayle 3 will be a very viable carry. She, at level 9, she gets so strong because she's able to snipe the backline with her level 9 ability. She gets bonus abilities at level 6 and level 9, so she has huge spikes, and that's part of the reason why she's able to carry throughout the whole game. She doesn't really have a weak point. I think that will change in the future, but at the time, I don't think that's the case. I would say in theory, Sona carry could be possible, but she might not quite have the damage. And besides that, Lux also in theory should work, but while playing her, she was really underwhelming, which is really too bad because I love Lux. I'm a big fan of Lux, but she really likes to have a lot of AP. Don't put Shred on her. She has natural Shred, so don't put a Shiv on her. She doesn't need it. Give her AP so she's able to shred through the front line. She doesn't snipe the back line, so you have to be able to get through the front line fast, or else you're just not going to be able to out damage your opponent's back line. Like I said, she felt weak, but that doesn't mean she's always going to be weak. And also too, the reach trait of Demacia 9 is incredibly, I'm just gonna say broken. It's plus 180 armor and plus 180 magic resist. You're giving 4 units radiant items and everything's getting this buff, and it beat everything. Just absolutely everything. I don't know if that will be changed, as it is a 2-spat trait, but compared to the Challenger 2-spat trait, the Demacian one, they just couldn't mess with it at all. And for those spat holders, Cassante is way up there because he is a Bastion unit. Rise is up there just because Rise is broken, and he gives Invoker if you have the Galio on the board. Of course, other 5 cost units too if you have more than 2 Demacia spats, but it's a crazy comp to see. I saw Demacia 9 multiple times take over Lompies because there's not much else you can do against it. It's easily the strongest comp at the time. If you're playing for a full win out, Demacia 9 is the way to do it. Now for the next one, although we did play challengers earlier, there's a different way to make Yasuo and Kaisa shine, and that is through Invoker, which I think is a really fun comp to play. This was one of my favorites. Yasuo pops off like crazy. You'll see it here. He just heals up so much and does so much damage. And this one is using 4 Invokers and some Ionians to be able to work together. And you can see we have the Shin as our main tank, Yasuo as our main carry, and then Kaisa is where the AP items will go. And then Rise, I mean, he's the best Invoker. You can use a different one, like a Galio or something, before you get the Rise, but as soon as you see Rise, you want to put Rise in, and you never take him out, ever. And then Invoker Slandra, and we have the Sejuani in there. If you have a Bruiser Crest, you can use that as well, but you don't have to have it. This comp was great. I love Kaisa and Yasuo working together as a team, and it was a blast to watch this. So this would probably be my highest recommended comp. If it did well, isn't one I expect to just win all the time. If you want to win all the time, play Demacia. But if you want to have fun, play Invoker Yasuo. It is a blast. You won't regret it. And because we are kind of on that trail of more vertical comps, I have to talk about one. I want to say it's my favorite too, because I just think these traits are so much fun, this set. There is Void Vertical, and there's a couple ways to play Void. You can play 6 or you can play 8. 8 is obviously the best, but it is a reach trait, so without a spatula, you're not able to achieve it. There's only 7 Void units naturally. If you have 6, then I'm not really for sure the best way to play it. I personally had a lot of fun playing the 4 Sorc version with it, where I had Ahri carry along with Kaisa or Bel'Veth. Either one of them works. If you have AD, I would say put it on Bel'Veth. If you have AP, go for Kaisa. And the thing is though, Ahri needs to have blue buff. She needs to cast 3 times to get her AoE ability to go off, so make sure you have that. I think there's other ways to do 6 Void and then tie things in, but because Malzahar and Vel'Koz already have Sorc, that helps a lot. I also did for Bruiser at 1.2, and I've also seen people weave Bastion a bit more into there. That hasn't been solved, but personally I did enjoy the 6 Void for Sorc, so I think you should give it a shot. However, nothing compares to the joy that 8 Void brings. Baron is so much fun. He has 3 abilities and every 2 attacks, and he launches these abilities. He's got knockups, and he has like this corrosive spit. It's great. He has way more health than he probably should, but Demacia still destroys him, so nerf Demacia. I don't know. I'm guessing it's going to be nerfed, but I think Void is great. I think Void is so much fun. It pretty much gives you everything you want from Void champions. If you have the Void Spatula, I recommend Cassante, as he gives Bastion, and he's just a good unit. However, also if you get Rise, you just play Rise because Rise is broken, and he probably will be the entire set. I'd be surprised if he isn't. And in some weird cases, if he had 2 Void Spats and he had the gold, I would just put Heimer on, because Heimer is really great for late game too, and you have infinite frontline with Baron because he scales with the team's stars and health. It's great. It's so much fun. So that is a highly recommend comp too, that you can't really say you played set 9 of TFT if you haven't played that comp. So now, another vertical. There's a good number of verticals, but don't worry, we'll move on to some other stuff here soon. We have Vertical Slayer, and there are a couple ways to play this one as well. You can do duo carry with Zed and Kled. I recommend this if you have a lot of offensive items, or you have an augment that gives you additional offensive items. You want to 3-star both of those, and then of course you want to play all the other Slayers. So you want to play Kayle. I recommend putting a Shiv and giving her the Shred, essentially kind of keeping her safe in that backline, but helping your Gwyn is what you're going to be playing in the future as well. The one that I have you showing is if you're playing more around the Gwyn carry rather than the Zed and Kled carry. Gwyn felt really great in the playtest, so that's kind of why I'm leaning toward that one. And in this case, you do want to have a Slayer spat for your Katarina if you want to get to 6 Slayer. If not, you're fine at 5 Slayer as well. It's still very strong. All these units felt great. Slayer might be a little bit overtuned, but because there are some things that were already very broken, it wasn't really showing it as much. And then of course we have the Scion and Sejuani there, because they are just a really strong front line together. And after that, it's Slayers plus Katarina. It's fun comp, and it did very well as well, and Gwyn feels crazy good. And I don't know if Gwyn and Kayle, I feel like Gwyn's gonna say the same. Kayle's definitely getting nerfed for sure, but I'm guessing this comp will continue to have some place in the meta. This is, I guess, also technically another vertical trait, but 6 Shadow Isles for Rogue. I haven't actually played the 6 Shadow Isles version. I've played 4 Rogue, and I'll post a video of that later, where I played Double Trouble Rogues, and that was a blast. This version is going for Reroll Viego, so Viego 3 and Maokai 3 is the way to go. However, you can also do the even better version is Katarina 3, Zed 3 instead. In this case, I'm doing the Viego, and then the Gwyn is the secondary carry just because she's very strong. Viego is a little bit overtuned as well, in my opinion. Yeah, I know I'm saying a lot of things are overtuned, okay? Well, I'm showing you the good stuff, but he's really, really good throughout the mid game. He falls off for sure around stage 5 or so, but early game, if you're naturaling Viegos, just get Viego 3, give him some AP and watch him go. He's fantastic. And of course, get your rogues, and there's not too much else to say there. You could also take out the Senna and Kalista, and you could go a different route, like additional Slayers, for instance, like put in the Aatrox and the Kayle. You can just put in more Slayers. However, that's more to benefit your Gwyn and less so your Viego. But that's also a possibility if you want to build more around Gwyn. That definitely works as well. If you don't have 6 Shadow Isles, it's another reach trait. You have to get the Spatula to get 6 Shadow Isles. So Kalista and Senna are optional. However, if you are playing this and you're getting AD items, at least you have a Senna that can carry them for you. So now we're going to move on to some reroll comps. As I said, Kayle was very broken in the test. When I say broken, I mean really broken. However, I still wanted to test this. I don't know how good it's going to be after Kayle gets inevitably nerfed, because it's going to happen, but this is the reroll that is here. It is Kayle and Poppy and Malachi, Kled, Teemo, and Sona. And this way we have 3 Yordles, so our Poppy can become a 4-star Yordle and really wreak havoc on everything. And sometimes you can give her the Demacia Radiant item as well. So a 4-star with a Radiant item for free, just for rolling. You just gotta roll. And then Kayle, also you 3-star her too. So the big ones are 3-starring Poppy and Kayle, and ideally Malachi, because you need to get the 3 stars to activate your Yordle trait. And then after that, you can play like Galio instead of Sona if you're not fighting Sona or low rolling or whatever. And also you play the Teemo in there because he has multicaster. So this is the way that you go about that. And later in the game, you can play things like Heimer and just other good units in general. You have Ryze, Heimer, Cassante. They're all good. You just throw them in there and watch Kayle go to work, go to level 9 quick. Speaking of which, there is definitely going to be a little bit of a late game triangle that I think we'll be seeing a lot. I just want to go over it briefly before going to our next comp. There's Cassante, Shin, and Ryze. Together they have Bastion, Invoker, and Wanderer. I think if you're not playing these on your in-game boards, assuming these aren't highly nerfed or changed, then the board could probably be stronger. That's how strong most of the stuff is, with the exception of, some of these vertical traits and stuff. But if you're doing like a 5-cost board, you're generally going to be playing this. In some cases, though, you will be playing the Sejuani Scion, which also is very strong too. But I just think that we'll be seeing this Bastion Invoker Wanderer combo quite a bit. So speaking of which, this is the value board, the true 5s, the win out board that I've come up with. And this is only with 8. Of course, you're going to have 9 and sometimes even more units on the board. But these are the synergies and the units that I would be looking at. So, and I've seen a couple people play very similar things to this when they were going for the win out boards. We have Scion as their tank, Cassante can also tank, Sejuani and Shin, and then we have Ryze giving him that blue buff so he can get multiple casts off. And then in this case Heimer, because being able to upgrade the turret, it gets really strong really quickly, especially at 2-star. And next to him would be the turret as well, where the Jace is. So when the Jace uses his gate, it hits the turret as well as the Senna would be the idea here. So Senna's blasting, Heimer's turret is blasting, Jace carries the Zeeks and the Chalices or anything like that. I saw multiple Chalice builds with like Ryze and Jace and Senna and Heimer. So be ready for that for sure. But something like this is going to be one of your true 5s win out boards, but there's a variety of ones you can do, obviously. So there it is, 11 comps that you should try in PBE. Test them out, let me know how they go, and if you have any comps that you're looking to play. Thanks for watching, bye!